Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Well, hello there, and welcome to the program, Agriculture on the Move. I am Philip Sidney, your host. Today we are discussing pesticide use. And when we say pesticide, it's the broad umbrella that comes with insecticides, fungicides, weedicides, molluscicides, rodenticides. All of them falls under the broad name pesticides. And of course, it's important, we come to you every year, maybe twice a year, to remind you of the use of pesticides. They are dangerous, so we need to update you and keep you informed as far as the use of pesticides are concerned. With me today is Mr. Cletus Alexander, who's a crop protection officer in the Ministry of Agriculture. Welcome to the program, brother.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me this afternoon.
Thank you for being here. I know you're busy, my comrade. I know you have so much to do, but I'm happy, you come here time and time again to really give some information to the public, because they need to know, because when you're dealing with pesticides, we know they are hazards, and we need to know how to deal with them. But what are the major concerns with pesticide use in St. Lucia?
Pesticide use is a major concern in St. Lucia. You have a number of farmers who cannot read and understand the pesticide label. You have a number of farmers using pesticides on the wrong crop. You have a number of the retail agribusiness places selling the wrong pesticide to the farmer. You have some of the agribusiness places selling pesticides with the wrong label. We have agribusiness places selling pesticides whereby it is not sold in the recommended way. It is not properly, or let's say if you go by the market, for example, you'll see a number of persons selling pesticides with no label, no active ingredient. When you buy the pesticide on whatever package, there's no active ingredient and so on. You have pesticide, even after you have used the pesticide, disposal of the pesticide container. When you go out in the field, you see pesticide containers probably that were used decades ago. After you plow the soil, you still see those empty containers on the pesticide. Wow. So it's a whole issue of from registration to disposal of the pesticide. The whole life cycle of the pesticide needs to be reconsidered in St. Lucia.
But let us, okay, what is your unit doing on a regular basis to update St. Lucians, especially the farmers? Like you mentioned, some of them cannot read the labels. What are you all doing to ensure that they are safe to use those pesticides?
We do a number of pesticide training on pesticide use and safety. But the issue is this: as I said, you have persons selling pesticides and the pesticides are not properly packaged. You have some of the retail shops repackaging the pesticide. You have pesticides, if you go by the in town, you'll see selling pesticides whereby the label is in a foreign language, which is illegal. Well, as the pesticide board is the regulator of pesticides in St. Lucia. Right. The pesticide board is supposed to have its and an inspector who will monitor what is happening out there and work together with the customs so that those can be rectified in terms of the inspector confiscating products and so on. This is what is happening presently.
Okay, but for example, you mentioned, okay, if you go by the market, somebody ad lib selling pesticides, right, to the farmers, to the public. It is not labeled or the wrong label is on it. What do you all do with that person doing such a thing?
Well, based on the law, you're supposed to get a warrant from a magistrate, and sometimes when you all go through all the bureaucracy and so on, the pesticide is already sold, and what we can do is sub-programs of that nature where we educate farmers and the public out there in terms of the way they should purchase pesticide. Pesticide should not be purchased without the label. Pesticide should not be repackaged and so on. That is what we can do for now.
But even I know you have farmers putting pesticides in soft drink bottles. What you all do?
Well, in a situation like this, it is very difficult to police. A farmer decides to put pesticide in a soft drink bottle. We've warned persons, we have had lots of programs in that regard, and persons still continue doing the same. It's, as I said, it will be very difficult to sort of control this unless you educate farmers properly. As I said, give them the right education. If you give them the right education, probably in the coming weeks or whatever, they're going to change those habits. But as I said, it's very difficult to change this.
Okay, but let's go back a bit. I mean, I'm sure what we are discussing here, many moons ago that you all have been discussing that, right?
Yes.
Have you seen any obvious change with the farmers and also the people who are selling those pesticides out there? Have there been some change?
Definitely not, because as I said, when a pesticide is registered, it is registered based on the label that the person submit to the pesticide board. But what is happening when you go out there, do your monitoring, you see pesticides that are sold under the wrong label, the wrong color code. Every pesticide is supposed to have a color code. Take for example, some of the observation I've made is that you have, take for example, a product like a paraquat product. That is a product that's supposed to have a yellow label. And you've seen persons selling pesticides, that particular pesticide, with a green label, which says, well, it is not toxic at all. And these are some of the issues that we in the coming weeks, we're going to address based on with the pesticide.
What are the hazardous, highly hazardous chemicals we have in St. Lucia that is cause for concern?
Yes, we have a number of highly hazardous pesticides still registered on the pesticide list. And when I speak to highly hazardous pesticides are those pesticides that are capable of causing irreversible harm to human health. Those are the pesticides that are, if you go under the Rotterdam Convention, they are listed on the Annex 3 of the Rotterdam Convention. These are the pesticides whereby on the Stockholm Convention, the label, you have 1A and 1B. Whenever you see a pesticide with 1A or 1B, it is a highly hazardous pesticide. And on the pesticide list presently, as I said, we have several highly hazardous pesticides, like paraquat, we call it gramaxone. We have glyphosate, the touchdown, glufosinate ammonium, the Basta. You have methomyl, a product called Lanit. We have chlorpyrifos. We have 2,4-D-amine. Those are some of those highly hazardous pesticides that are used presently out in the field. And to use highly hazardous pesticides, it will be very difficult to phase out all the highly hazardous pesticides. What we recommend to the farmers is that in the absence of the alternative, you can use all the necessary protective equipment so that the risk is minimized. But again, farmers, they tend to tell you that they've been using pesticides for so long and nothing is happening to them. But you have to understand that for pesticide use, the effect can be chronic and it can be acute as well. Probably some of those pesticides that we use, they've been using, it's accumulating in the body because of the level of exposure. They have no protective equipment, and as you know, the body is very susceptible. You're not a turtle. A turtle, you have a hard shell where the pesticide will not be able to enter. But the biggest organ in your body is your skin, and all the skin you have pores, and so you have your ears, you have your nose where pesticides can enter as well. So it is an issue. Pesticide, highly hazardous pesticide, is an issue for us. Take for example, gramaxone, the paraquat. A lot of countries now are banning paraquat. Why? Because you have a high rate of suicide, because it is a weapon of choice. You have the glyphosate, which is the Basta. You've heard a lot about glyphosate. People suing Monsanto for millions and so on, claiming, well, they got cancer because after they use the product over a long period of time. But for us in St. Lucia, we have not banned the product, whereby the only country in the world that banned the product for agriculture use was Sri Lanka, and it was reinstated. But as I said, in terms of a product like this, you don't expect to go by, take for example, Derek Walcott Square and see persons using the glyphosate there. But it is a product that is most countries are regulating this particular product because of public safety. You should not use that product where you have other persons congregating and so on. This is the issue. In terms of the others, like in the methomyl and so on, but there is a dire need for research in alternatives to those highly hazardous pesticides. On a global scale, it is happening, but the alternatives as well, they are problematic as well, because there are still lots of unknowns. A lot of persons now are talking about biopesticide, botanicals, and so on. Yes, but there are lots of unknowns. For example, we had a product called Biorat. It is salmonella. They put salmonella to control the rodents in this particular product. But what can happen to the salmonella is that it can mutate. So whereby with the pesticide over time, the concentration will be diluted. But if, for example, you introduce a product like this, a biopesticide, it means it is a live organism. So you cannot withdraw the live organism when you introduce it into the market. So these are some of the issues as a pesticide board we face out there.
But there are chemicals that are banned overseas that you mentioned. And right here, I know there is our sister island St. Vincent also banned that particular chemical.
Glyphosate, yeah.
Right. But we have it here in St. Lucia.
Well, as I said, banning of a pesticide, there is no globally harmonized system for pesticide registration. It is country specific, as I mentioned a while ago. Take, for example, the gromazone. Countries are phasing out gromazone because of the suicide rate. In St. Vincent, the decision was taken years ago to ban the glyphosate, but I'm not sure whether it was reinstated. But as a CGPC grouping, which is the grouping of pesticide boards of the Caribbean, where we meet and we discuss pesticide issues, and the CGPC is the CARICOM working group on pesticide management. So probably St. Vincent is the only country that banned this particular pesticide. But again, as I said, there is a dire need for alternatives in that regard. And if all the free herbicides that we use presently, the glufosinate ammonium, the Basta, the Touchdown, and the Gromaxone, all those pesticides are listed as a highly hazardous pesticide. But as a board, you cannot ban those pesticides, because if you do, we'll not tell a farmer to go and weed 5 acres of bananas in the absence of an alternative. But what you can do is take the precautionary approach. Presently, there are no alternatives, but make sure when you're applying the pesticides, you adhere to the pesticide label and you put all the protective equipment that you have on the farm.
Wow. But what do you do on a regular basis to actually get the farmers to understand the dangers of using those chemicals? And that's why I think we falter, you know. I know you said, okay, you go out there, the farmers should know to read the labels, but in terms of the protective wear, are you all doing a surveillance at those shops that are selling those chemicals to see that they sell protective gear?
Presently, we did some monitoring, but most of the retailers are saying that since COVID, there is a shortage of protective equipment on the market. Probably because of COVID, a number of the PPE that was used for pesticide, a number of persons use it for COVID as well. So we've been impressing upon those retailers that if you're selling pesticides, you should sell the protective equipment as well. And it is the duty of the farmer or whoever is using pesticide in the households as well, because that is where pesticide registration is so complex. Some of the pesticides that we're using out in the field, the agrochemicals, the active ingredient is the same as some of the pesticides that we use in the household. Whereby with pesticide, with the agrochemicals, we tend to tell the farmers use the protective equipment, but in a household setting, you will not tell persons use the regular slug bait you're using around the homes. You should have protective equipment to apply the slug bait. The normal aerosol spray that you use for the roaches and the mosquitoes and so on. You will not tell the householder to use protective equipment, yet it is the same active ingredient in the agrochemical. You have persons now using, take for example, the scented aerosols. with the same active ingredient as some of the pesticides, and you at home watching television, you close all your door and you still there watching the television because it is scented.
When I was young, I used to do that.
No, because it is scented. Whereby
yes.
before it was not scented. When you were applying those aerosols, you would open all your windows and you would sit out. Now it is scented.
You figure it is safe to say.
That is the trick. It is scented, and persons now believe, well, it is different. It is more friendly and so on. So they will sit at home and apply those aerosols and watch television.
Yes.
So imagine you doing that for decades. What is going to happen to you? Yes, it may not happen to you certainly, but over time it's going to affect the body.
You spoke about alternative hazardous harsh chemicals that can be used, the organically, produced chemicals. How prevalent are those chemicals? How can you access those chemicals in St. Lucia?
Well, again, it's not St. Lucia alone. Yes, we've been talking about alternatives, like botanicals. These are the extracts from plants and so on, the pheromones, which is called the semiochemicals, and the microbials, which is the live microorganisms. We've been talking about those pesticides for a very long time on a global scale. But in terms of commercialization, in the pesticide market, the market for toxic chemicals is approaching $60 billion a year. But in terms of the organic products, it is still less than 100 million in terms of value. So you can see there is a dire need to source those pesticides, do more research, bring them in, evaluate those pesticides, because without evaluation, you cannot tell a farmer use microbials versus the toxic chemicals, because with the toxic chemicals, they're going to see the effect immediately. But the botanicals, the semiochemicals, they work differently. You have to apply some of those pesticides even before you observe any problem. So those microorganisms, they have to be fixed in the soil and so on, and then they will be able to do the work for you. But with the toxic chemical, you just use it for one spray and then you see the effect. That is some of the issues we face out there.
So, in St. Lucia to date, I know we have had some organic pesticides, all right? Do we do our own research in St. Lucia in terms of adaptation of those chemicals and the use by the farmers from your unit standpoint?
Yes, we do a lot of work in terms of outreach programs with the farmers in terms of the biopesticide. As a pesticide board, we've been registering a lot of biopesticides lately. The microbials, the botanicals, things like Timorex Gold and so on, Sting, Biopower, BioCure, and so on. All these are microbials. We've been registering those products. But as I said, the issue is that in terms of the effect, that is where the farmers, we need to do more training. The farmers, as I said, the farmers want immediate effect. But the microbials and the botanicals, they are a bit slower than those toxic chemicals.
All right, we'll do for our first break. You're watching Agriculture in the Mood. We'll do for our first break. Stay tuned. Back soon.
Treatment, always follow the recommended safety procedures. Always wear protective gear when handling or being exposed to the fungicide or other pesticides. Use only the fungicides recommended by the Black Sigatoka Management Unit when the treatment is due. The required quantity of the particular fungicide recommended must be mixed with spray oil and applied at a rate of 1.5 to 2 gallons per acre. Fungicides which are not recommended or applied at the wrong time, or even when the spray treatment is not done effectively, can cause the fungus to become resistant to the chemical and therefore may no longer control the disease. Oil fungicide mix which has been stored for too long should not be used to treat Black Sigatoka disease. If carried out, such treatments may not be effective and can lead to poor control of the disease. Remember, before each chemical treatment for Black Sigatoka disease on your farm, first, the oil fungicide mix must be re-agitated immediately before application.
For more information on how to treat and control Black Sigatoka on your farm or in your backyard garden, soon, contact the Black Sigatoka Management Unit at 451-5491, 451-5894, or email bpmu@candw.lc. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Agriculture in collaboration with the International Cooperation and Development Fund of the Republic of China on Taiwan.
Welcome back to the program, Agriculture on the Move. With me is Mr. Cletus Alexander, Plant Protection Officer, and also we're discussing pesticide use. Cletus, there is a pesticide board. What's the role again of the pesticide board?
The pesticide board is basically the regulator for pesticides in St. Lucia. They do pesticide registration, issuing of the import permits. The pesticide board is supposed to license all the retail shops. Pest control operators, they're supposed to be licensed by the pesticide board as well. These are the major functions of the Pesticide and Toxic Chemical Control Board.
Okay, so somebody who is doing, say, pest control at homes and other business places, you have to be registered?
Yes, this is a threat again to in terms of human health. You have to certify those operators because you have to make sure that they use the right pesticides, they have the right equipment to apply the pesticides and so on. So they need to be licensed.
So, okay, the pesticide board also, they cannot take a decision to actually curtail the use of a hazardous pesticide?
Yes, based on the Pesticide Act, the pesticide board can deregister a pesticide, but it is the minister that can ban a pesticide in St. Lucia. And in terms of dealing with the highly hazardous pesticides that we talk about, at the regional level, there is a plan for dealing with highly hazardous pesticides, which we have adopted as well, which is one, reduce the dependence on highly hazardous pesticides. Because what is happening out there is that whenever there is a problem, to me, it may not be a problem, but whether the farmers see a few insect damage on the farm, the first line of defense is to use pesticide. And as a result, there is over-reliance on pesticide. The farmer will have a problem, the farmer will go to the agri-shop. The person in the agri-shop does not know whichever insect is affecting the crop, but that person is going to recommend a pesticide to the farmer. And that pesticide may be a class 1A pesticide, which is a highly hazardous pesticide. The crop, at what stage the crop is in, the farmer will not tell the person in the agribusiness shop what stage, whether that's flowering stage, whether that's vegetative stage or close to harvesting, but that person is going to issue a pesticide to the farmer. And what is going to happen? The farmer is going to use the pesticide. Now, there are pesticides that once the plant is fruiting, you're not supposed to use this particular pesticide. Correct. The agribusiness person will not ask the farmer, what group of pesticide is this? At what stage of the crop you're supposed to use a particular group? Like, for example, if you have an organophosphate, if it's a pyrethroid, how the pyrethroid is working, when to use the pyrethroid. These are some of the issues that we have to educate those persons out there in terms of pesticide use.
But you touched a very important point there, you know. It's like, okay, I cannot go to a pharmacy and see, I would tell the pharmacist what are my symptoms. The pharmacy cannot diagnose a medication for me unless I go to a doctor.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yes.
Okay. So why is it that the farmer can go to that shop and, like you said, he has not been able to give the overall evaluation of the crop on the field, and then this gentleman will issue to him a hazardous chemical to go back and spray, and what would happen? 2 weeks later he would go out, a week later he would harvest that crop and sell to the consumers.
Well, the problem, the two systems work almost the same. With the medical system, yes, you might need a prescription, but remember there are over-the-counter drugs as well.
I understand that.
Well, with pesticides, at registration, the person is supposed to provide what is called the MSD sheet, the pesticide label. You have an application, you have your dossier. Now you review those information, and then you register the pesticide. You register the pesticide for a particular use. So why are you now, a farmer, wanting the pesticide? Because you already registered, take for example, as a herbicide. So if the farmer has a problem with weeds, the farmer must have a prescription saying, well, I need to use the herbicide to control weeds as well. But your point is very important in terms of food security.
Exactly.
Based on the pesticide board, there are certain pesticides that are restricted use pesticides. Only certain persons should use the pesticide. Take for example, you must have the right equipment to use the pesticide.
Correct.
Take for example, Vidit. You see farmers using Vidit on vegetables.
Yes, yes.
And when you Vidit, based on Vidit, registration of Vidit, the equipment to apply the Vidit was a Vidit gun, where it's already calibrated at 7.5 ml. And Vidit is probably the most toxic pesticide on the pesticide list.
True.
So, in terms of the money, that is the way the board, that is the way we should go with this.
Yeah.
Those pesticides that are classified as highly hazardous pesticide, class 1A pesticide, it should be restricted. If you go to a shop and you ask somebody for a class 1A pesticide, that person should give you a form, and you should take that form probably to the extension officer or somebody at research, and they can approve of that for you. In the absence of this, what is happening? You have even the persons, as I said, the retail shops, because of the poor labeling standards, the codes that they're supposed to use, they're not using the proper code. Based on my observation during this week, there's dire need to go back and educate those persons in those shops on the pesticide label, on the code, because every pesticide is supposed to have a color code. A highly hazardous pesticide is supposed to have a red, green red. One which is moderately hazardous, yellow. Then you have a slightly hazardous, blue, and then you have a green. But what is happening, I saw persons now with pesticides, paraquat, a pesticide that's supposed to have a yellow color code. I saw pesticide with a green color code. So if you put a green color code on paraquat, it says, well, it is not very toxic. It is environmentally friendly, which is wrong.
Yes, yes.
So definitely, as I said, there is a dire need to rethink, to go back and educate those persons.
Yeah, so what are you all doing?
Well,
what is the board doing? Because you're a member of the board.
Well, we had a consultancy over the weekend, not over the weekend, last week, sorry. We had a consultant hired by the FAO reviewing the legislation and regulations. So definitely, based on his advice, definitely we're going to make it our duty, because it's very important that we protect the public from the use of pesticide hazard, because it is the board's duty to protect environmental health, human health, and animal health as well. So that is the way forward. Based on his report now, what he's recommending, we'll look at the recommendation and implement those recommendations.
Well, how, again, is there a time frame, a timeline, or when, because that is crucial, eh?
Yes, it is very crucial, but again, it's a matter of enforcement. Pesticide labeling, I spoke to a while ago, it is in the Pesticide Act. It is not, in St. Lucia we have all those pieces of legislation, but we don't enforce the rules. That is the issue with us.
Who is supposed to enforce it? That's the question.
Yeah, as I said, the pesticide board
was supposed to be
all the stakeholders on the board as well is supposed to, in the Ministry of Agriculture, Environmental Health, Sustainable Development, Customs, and so on. Because
nothing is our issue until it is crisis. Eh? Only when there's a crisis, then people act in St. Lucia. That's
it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
Because
definitely.
It's already a crisis.
It's a crisis.
It's a crisis because, as I said, farmers are using the wrong pesticides. Persons in the households, they're using the wrong pesticides.
Okay.
Imagine I went to the same visit to the consultant, and what happened is that we met somebody selling pesticide. when they question, well, what is the pesticide? It controls everything.
Oh, sure.
How do you apply it? Either you use a sprayer or you use a brush. For bed bugs, the person is saying you use a sprayer. A highly hazardous pesticide, use a sprayer, or you put make the solution and use a painting brush to put on the...
Comrade, we have to end it here because we have reached the end of the program. I'd like to thank you for ending on that note, because it's very critical. We need to come have a part 2 on that program very, very shortly. Thank you for being here, Cletus, and I wish you success in ensuring that your board takes immediate action to at least put a stop for the pesticide hazardness in terms of what we use in St. Lucia.
Yeah, thanks for having this afternoon. As you said, I'm willing to come back anytime.
You have been watching Agriculture on the Move. I will thank you for viewing the program. But remember, pesticides are dangerous. All pesticides. If you want to use aerosols at your home, be careful. Read the label. I'm Philip Sidney. Goodbye.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.